In the past week alone, there's been rumors of Red Dead Redemption 2, Far Cry 7, and Monster Hunter 6 all releasing on the Nintendo Switch 2. But I really want to talk about third parties as a whole and why the Switch 2 might be kind of a monster when it comes to third-party support. Let's talk about it. Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. So yeah, today I want to talk about third-party support on Nintendo's next console as a general kind of concept, because I've been thinking about this for a while. I've wanted to make this video for a while, and recently there have been a lot of rumors about third-party games being in development for Switch, or we see ratings board listings placed for Red Dead 2 and then removed and all these different things. So I want to talk about third-party support and why the Switch 2 could honestly be really, really good when it comes to that. So I guess the first thing I want to make a point here with is publishers would be foolish not to support this thing, full stop. The Switch is on track to become the best-selling console of all time, so even if the Switch 2 is less powerful than the PS5 and Xbox Series X, which it will be, I think as a publisher or developer, you would kind of have to make those sacrifices to get your game running on the successor to the most popular console of all time, or what will probably become the most popular console of all time, or one of the most popular consoles of all time if it doesn't quite reach the heights of the PS2 and DS. The same thing happened with Switch though, where a lot of developers were very scared, I feel like, and they weren't on board immediately, and it took a couple of years for a lot of like those bigger Japanese third-party games and those bigger Western third-party games to really start coming over. There were a couple supporters early on. Bethesda, most notably, was pretty on board with the Switch from day one, but it took a little bit to get going there. From Square Enix, it was mostly their smaller titles, and outside of like a Nier Automata port later on and the Kingdom Hearts Cloud versions, Square Enix never really gave like their full like AAA attention to Switch, which makes sense because those games are beautiful and, well, most of them Sony signed exclusivity contracts for. But despite being more hesitant at the start because of, obviously, the Wii U situation, third-party support on Switch has gotten pretty good. At least, I feel like there's a wide range of publishers and developers willing to put their things on the Switch. In fact, there's only really one notable exception, and that's EA. EA really does not even touch the Switch outside of EA Sports FC, the new FIFA. So, we don't get Madden, we don't get NHL, we don't get UFC, we don't get Battlefield, we're not getting, things like Wild Hearts and all these things. EA is very much not supportive of Nintendo, it feels like. But outside of them, I feel like we have a nice range. Ubisoft is pretty supportive of the Switch, at least with smaller titles. I mean, they made a Mario game twice. WB is bringing the Batman Arkham trilogy. Yes, it's very late, but they're going to the effort to support, yes, 2 360 titles, but also a PS4 and Xbox One title with Arkham Knight. That probably wasn't easy to do. That's coming. Yes, it's very late, but it is coming. And Mortal Kombat 1, once again, completely broken. I'm not making the argument that the ports are good. I'm just saying that publishers are already trying to support the base Switch, so I feel like if more powerful hardware presents itself, why wouldn't they support it? Even Take-Two and 2K with Red Dead Redemption being ported to Switch and PS4, but Borderlands 3 is coming out this week on Switch. And once again, not saying these ports are good, I'm just saying it shows intent from developers. Actually, talking about EA really quick, and we'll talk about them more later, EA Sports FC 24 is actually the first game on the Switch running on Frostbite. I'm not sure if it's the first EA soccer game to run on Frostbite, but it is the first Switch game to be using the Frostbite engine, which is EA's engine. That's what they use for Battlefield and Battlefront and most of their games at this point that they develop in-house. Which, once again, even from EA, a publisher that doesn't really support Nintendo right now, that to me shows intent to grow on this platform moving forward. Especially because, if the Switch 2 is roughly around the power of base PS4, which I think a lot of people are expecting, but with DLSS upscaling to 4K, that's really compelling. And as someone who owns a PS5 and owns a Series X, I mean, my PS5 is currently, it fluctuates, but currently it's my most played system. As someone who plays on these consoles daily, yes, the games are beautiful, they run better than ever. I feel like nothing's been done that can't be done on PS4 or even like Xbox One X. But that's the thing though, most of it can. Most games are still coming to base PS4 and base Xbox One. Thinking about Call of Duty specifically for a second, we're seeing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, I know the titles are confusing, that's coming to PS4 and Xbox One in 2023. This will be the 4th Call of Duty that's been released since the PS5 came out, starting in 2020 with Cold War, and as someone who follows Call of Duty very closely, I don't really see a scenario where next year's game isn't going to be on PS4. And then rumored for 2025 is basically an expansion to that game being sold as a new game, and if that's the case, I don't see why that wouldn't come to PS4 either. I think for a lot of people, a lot of like the more casual market, we're kind of at a point with diminishing returns where, yes, the game's looking run better on the newer hardware, but it makes more sense for publishers and developers to keep a PS4 version around because a lot of people still haven't moved on. Sales have definitely declined for that. You know, your PS5 game is going to sell better than the PS4 game, but because the gap between PS4 and PS5 isn't so massive, making a little downgraded version for PS4 isn't that bad. And then when you factor in that Nintendo's going to be releasing a console that will likely be around the same power, that's just going to incentivize them even more so to keep making a version for PS4, a version for Xbox One, and then why not go ahead and bring it to Switch? So getting into a couple of the rumors that popped up over the past week, starting off with the editor-in-chief of Universal Nintendo, a Spanish website, he was saying that Monster Hunter, the next Monster Hunter, so the follow-up to Rise, the follow-up to World, right, will be releasing the same day on the next generation Switch as other platforms. That's very exciting, but not really unexpected. Monster Hunter is at home on handhelds, and while I love Monster Hunter World, it did feel a little weird not playing it on one, I won't lie. And I think the only reason Monster Hunter World didn't come to Switch to begin with was because that game would have been started development probably in, 2014, 2015? It was just a little too early, and at that point, just wait, port Generations Ultimate to Switch, and then make a new Switch from the ground up for Switch, and then at that point, they ported those to PS4 and Xbox One as well. So I feel like for the next Monster Hunter, it will just release on everything at the same time, and moving forward, that will probably be the case, because Monster Hunter, once again, sells... Well, it sells crazy anywhere, but Switch, especially in Japan, I feel like really just makes sense for that kind of game. This one's a little bit more juicy. He also said the next Far Cry game, Far Cry 7, will release on the Nintendo Switch 2 in late 2025. So this is a pretty far ways out here, but it's nice to see Ubisoft, that Ubisoft intent of bringing their more AAA titles that you would expect from them to Nintendo. I will say, just a brief aside, I'm a little surprised Far Cry has not come to Switch already. I mean, we've gotten some ports of weird Assassin's Creed games like Rogue and Black Flag, but we didn't get like Far Cry 3 or 4, which were PS3 games. A little weird. So Far Cry, I totally believe that. I like Far Cry. Far Cry 5 was great. But the fact that we might be seeing more AAA support from Ubisoft is very exciting. Even if I know Ubisoft's kind of a meme, just seeing that potentially happening is good for Nintendo all around. And then finally, there was this whole Red Dead Redemption 2 debacle. So this doesn't really relate to Switch 2, but I wanted to talk about it because a lot of people think that it did, although I completely disagree. The Brazilian rating board for video games, kind of like our ESRB or the UK's PEGI ratings, right? They had listed Red Dead Redemption 2 for the Nintendo Switch, and usually when a rating pops up, that is concrete, that is set in stone, like that's happening, right? They removed it, and they said it was a mistake. They also removed the listing for Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. I don't fully believe them. They said it was just meant to be the first game, and while that could be believable, Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition, that's a new title for a video game. That's not a mistake. That was a new thing. If it wasn't for them removing that, I would believe their excuse for removing Red Dead 2, but since they removed Beyond Good and Evil, I don't know really what to believe anymore. So if that happens, that means Red Dead Redemption 2 will come to the original Switch. I saw some people saying, oh, well, maybe it was rated for the Switch, but it's actually going to be a Switch 2 game. I don't think that's how that works. I'm pretty sure if it was rated for the Switch, that means it would be coming to Switch, assuming they're fibbing and it actually is real. Maybe the listing truly was made in error, but either way, Red Dead Redemption 2, wouldn't shock me. I know when that happened, it's very surprising, I guess, from the standpoint that the Switch would be getting something like that, or even the Switch 2 getting something like that, but they're porting Red Dead Redemption 1, and I know that's a PS3 and 360 game, but I don't know. We have Witcher 3, we have things like Doom and Doom Eternal, we have all these other things. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a very visually impressive game, but that one doesn't shock me that much, and I will say, if that happens on Switch 1, or even on Switch 2, depending on release timing, I could totally see GTA 6 releasing on the Switch. I think the only reason Rockstar hasn't brought GTA 5 to the Nintendo Switch is because, once again, hardware obviously constrains it, but also that game is updated so much with GTA Online, I feel like it wouldn't, it'd be worth it, but I think they maybe just don't want to deal with having to update it so much, especially on a downgraded version, whereas the Xbox One, Series X, PS4, PS5, PC, that's all pretty similar. Whereas a Switch version of GTA 5 would be a bit more effort than I guess they're willing to do. But if the Switch 2 is around the power of the PS4, I could totally see GTA 6 coming to that. Or maybe Rockstar would just grace us with GTA 5. actually 12 years after it released. Oh god. And then from here, I just want to kind of talk about other third-party support that we might see on this console. I really think the sky is the limit here. I think with how successful the Switch has been, if the Switch 2 is as powerful as we're expecting, base PS4, which isn't, I don't think, out of the realm of possibility at all, with DLSS, I don't really see why most things wouldn't come to Switch. I mean, a lot of Japanese stuff, I think, is guaranteed. And I'll be curious to see which developers want to go back and rectify their mistakes. I'm talking about Capcom and Square Enix in particular there with their cloud versions of Resident Evil, the remakes, as well as Kingdom Hearts for Square Enix. I would like to see those, maybe go back and fix those up. But also Capcom's newer games like Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out next year. If the Switch 2 comes out next year, maybe it wouldn't be there at launch, I would assume, but maybe a couple months after. And then moving forward, most of their stuff would be day and date. Same thing with Street Fighter 6. That game's going to be supported for many, many years. It's on PS5. It's on Xbox. I mean, I think that would also be a no-brainer to bring over to the Switch 2. And then Square Enix is a little bit more interesting because of Sony's exclusivity. Little grubby little mitts there. I don't know if Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth would ever come over. If they can, if like contractually they can, then sure, that will definitely happen. But I don't know if Sony's going to allow that. It'd be nice. Same thing with Final Fantasy 16. I mean, these are all things that like, as Square Enix, big Japanese company that maybe is struggling a little bit with their smaller titles. We saw some, I think, profit loss or something happened to them a couple weeks ago. I don't know. Why not bring your popular games to more hardware? That just makes financial sense if the hardware can easily run it. Even something like Final Fantasy XIV, I mean, that's coming over to Xbox now after millions and millions of years of people waiting, and I think that's going to be on Xbox One. I'll put a thing up if I'm wrong. But even something like Dragon Quest XII or Kingdom Hearts 4, I mean, Square Enix is very interesting. I'm just curious, you know, they've said they're going to focus a lot more on like AAA stuff. What that really means remains to be seen. Will that be them making a AAA Star Ocean, or will that mean they just pump out a AAA Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts as often as possible? We'll see what happens there, but I feel like Square Enix and just in general these Japanese devs, why wouldn't they support it? You know, there's really nothing to suggest they wouldn't. The only reason certain games haven't come to Switch is either because of contractual obligations, or in the case of like Street Fighter 6, for example, or even the Resident Evil remakes. Yeah, they probably could get it to run on Switch 1, but I mean, at a certain point, why bother? And of course, the final Japanese developer that really needs mentioned here is Sega. I think Sega is going to go all in. And I mean, this is kind of baseless speculation, but I feel like Yakuza has to happen. Now that the creator's gone, and I know he made those comments about, oh, Yakuza, Nintendo's for kids or whatever. Yakuza is more popular than it's ever been. That's an entire series worth of games. I mean, that's actually like 12 games they can trickle out and port over time. I feel like bringing Yakuza to the Switch just makes way too much sense. I could see Sega doing something stupid where like they only bring the new one for a little bit and then they go back and port the old ones or something like that. But I think every Yakuza game, every Judgment game will make its way to the Switch too. I feel like that just makes way too much sense, especially now that the new ones are turn-based and that's popular in Japan. And then on the Atlus side of things, I mean, we're getting Unicorn Overlord, and we got Persona 3 and 4 Golden and Portable, and Persona 5 Royal. Persona 3 Reload, I think, is the bigger question mark here. I mean, I don't really understand why that game's not on the Switch 1 to begin with. And, I mean, I think that led to a lot of speculation in of itself, of like, oh, they're just waiting until the Switch 2 so they can sell it there. Maybe. I mean, that's totally possible. Atlus does some weird stuff sometimes. Soul Hackers 2 was definitely a questionable release there, only on PlayStation and Xbox. But I would imagine Persona 3 Reload comes over. I would imagine Metaphor ReFantazio could also come over. I just don't understand why, if there's no hardware boundary, really, why not bring it over? I mean, Persona 3 Reload's a PS4 game. And then the final thing we need to talk about is third-party support from Western developers. This one I'm a little less sure about, but honestly, I don't know what I would really want personally from this. We already know we're going to be getting Call of Duty. That is happening, assuming, you know, assuming the Activision Xbox deal goes through, which I'm pretty sure we will hear about over the next couple of weeks. And if that happens, they are in a 10-year agreement to bring Call of Duty to the Nintendo Switch. The on-par console version of the newest Call of Duty will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. So that's exciting. Call of Duty, I mean, that's already the biggest third-party game they could get, maybe next to GTA 6. So Call of Duty's happening, which is huge. If we're hearing rumors about Far Cry 7 coming, I think it's safe to say that Ubisoft, first of all, will start porting their back catalog of Far Cry games and older Assassin's Creed games, but also, why not start bringing some of the newer Assassin's Creed games, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, maybe even the new ones like Mirage. I mean, I know there is a gap between PS4 and PS5, but most of these games are still running on PS4. Valhalla is a PS4 game, so I feel like if the Switch 2 is that powerful, why not? And I did touch on it briefly. EA, I feel like, is the strongest holdouts from this. I think, at least in terms of sports stuff, they might loosen up a little bit. You know, Madden not being on Switch is kind of crazy, if you honestly think about it. We already have EA Sports FC or FIFA, so I feel like Madden will start. Maybe NHL won it, maybe like the PGA Tour games won it. And then Battlefield, I could see them just, I don't know, man. Because if Call of Duty's coming over, you would think that EA would be like, okay, well, if Call of Duty's doing it, we probably should too. But maybe they'll just let Call of Duty have it. That'd be kind of crazy, but I don't know if EA will care enough. EA seems very stubborn when it comes to trusting Nintendo again after the Wii U. So we'll see on them. But in terms of other Western third parties, I mean, Rockstar and 2K seem pretty on board. WB seems pretty on board. There was a rating for Gotham Knights on the Switch, so we'll see if that happens, but like maybe Suicide Squad could come to Switch too. I don't know. I mean, for me, Western third parties aren't as exciting as Japanese third parties, and I know that's the inverse for a lot of people, but I feel like we already get a lot of Western third party stuff, and we're getting Call of Duty, and we're getting Ubisoft on board, and WB is already clearly on board, same with 2K. I don't really know what else a lot of people would want. Most of the other big Western games are first party for Xbox or Sony. Either way, it's very exciting to see what the future holds for Nintendo when it comes to third party support. I'm always going to be excited to see, you know, the craziest ports happen. Red Dead 2 being on Switch 1, potentially? Probably not, but potentially? Very exciting just to see how it runs. I think that's really cool. Or even like the Batman Arkham trilogy coming over is very exciting. And then into the future with Switch 2, will we get Suicide Squad? Will we get something like Elden Ring over there? Will we see more support from Square Enix and Capcom with their AAA titles? It's all very exciting, and as a Nintendo fan, I just have to say, as someone who was covering Nintendo on YouTube in the thick of the Wii U era, it is nice to be able to actually talk about these things and hypothesize them actually happening, and you know what? I think it will. So I think if you are a fan of third-party games and you like owning a Nintendo console, we are in for a treat over the next couple of years. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you think we will be seeing more third-party supports than ever for a Nintendo console on the Switch 2? I personally think so, but let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo coverage like this pretty much each and every day. Until next time, folks, peace!